Enterprise environmental factors. Enterprise environmental factors. Enterprise environmental factors. And I could go on saying it for as long as it's in the Pmbok guide. It's probably in there about 30 times or more. So why not do yourself a favor? Go to the most current version of the Pmbok guide, and study enterprise environmental factors once and for all. I tell people, do yourself a favor, because you're going to see it as a recurring theme anyway. Why not just read it now? Read it in detail. Take out a pen and paper and write out every single one of those EEFs. There's quite a number of them in the Pmbok guide, but doing it early will help save time downstream, because you're going to come across EEFs until you're tired of them, okay? So read it once. An enterprise environmental factor is simply a factor that could affect your project positively or negatively, and it could be any factor. But bear in mind, when we talk about factors, we're not talking about a tangible thing per se. We're talking about the factor behind anything that's mentioned. So, for example, government regulations. The regulation itself is a factor that could affect your project. What about availability of resources? If you don't have the right resources for a project, it's a factor that will affect your ability to bid or execute the project. What about availability of infrastructure? If you don't have a particular infrastructure needed to execute a project, it's going to affect you. Also, when you think about project management information systems, the availability of a PMIS, a project management information system, in your organization is a factor that could determine how you carry out the project. You see, there are so many EEFs that if I were you, I would go to the Pmbok guide, write it down. I know I'm in broken record mode, but write it down and know the details once and for all. So enterprise environmental factors are internal and external environmental factors that influence the success of a project. And I took that from Project Management Essentials. I hope you're reading Project Management Essentials as well, because that's where we demystify the very cryptic language in the Pmbok guide and make it very easy to understand. But that said, go to the mothership, the Pmbok guide itself, to get the raw, granular, esoteric version of anything that we put in our book. Do you know why? Why do I tell people to read the Pmbok guide before the PMP exam? It's to get familiar with the language that they will encounter on the actual exam. One of my students said, oh, the Pmbok guide is so boring. It's like Ambien. When I'm tired, I just read it and I fall asleep. It's even better than Ambien. Yes, it might be, but go try that on the exam and say, oh, these exam questions make me so bored. I want to sleep. It's not a good idea, is it? So again, read the Pmbok guide, okay? It will help you. And when it comes to EEFs, enterprise environmental factors, very important to read it in the Pmbok guide. So these are factors that could affect the project positively or negatively. And for example, government or industry regulations. We could also refer to the availability of resources in a company and so on and so forth, okay? So get ready. You will see enterprise environmental factors a lot. You will also see, on occasion, enterprise environmental factors updates. But there's a difference between enterprise environmental factors, which are inputs to processes, versus enterprise environmental factors updates, which are outputs of certain processes. So don't mix enterprise environmental factors with the updates. Very important.